Everyone, good morning. It's a beautiful, clear, chilly morning this morning, and I'm out here in my floating blind. The sun is about to come up, and I'm looking for some birds to photograph. They're all around me. I can hear them everywhere. Now, this morning's adventure is going to be quite a bit different than what I usually do in my floating blind, so follow along this morning as I explain why and as I go out and find some beautiful, beautiful birds to photograph. Let's go. Usually when I set out in my floating blind, I have a goal species in mind that I want to photograph, and I'm familiar with the area and water conditions that I'm setting the blind up in. But this morning was different. Yeah, I started early, well before the sun was up, just like I always do. I set out into the water and waited for the birds to show up, just like I always do. And while it was still dark, I got my extra memory cards and batteries ready, just like I always do. Only this time, I was in an unfamiliar, wide open area, and I didn't know what birds to expect. A few months ago, I posted a video where I told you my top tips, my recipe for success when using a floating blind to photograph birds. This morning, I felt as if I was doing everything completely opposite from what I recommended. Ugh, I'm such a hypocrite. So why the change? The past few years, we've been in an extreme drought in my area. It's been tough on many species that I love to spend time with and photograph, but if we're being honest, it's been wonderful for duck photography. Because of the lack of water, the ducks have been consolidated into these smaller areas. It's quite simple, really. The ducks go where the water is. And when there's not a lot of water, the ducks are easier to find. I've been able to observe so many amazing species in relatively small areas, and the photography has been phenomenal. Last year, we received record amounts of moisture, for which I am so grateful. But with the sudden influx of water, the ducks can show up just about anywhere when you least expect it. And I mean anywhere. Even farmers' fields have become safe havens for many species. With the ducks no longer consolidated in these smaller, more predictable areas, they are difficult to pin down, and the photography, as a result, has also been very difficult, to say the least. So this morning, as I set out in my floating blind, just as I've done so many times before, I truly didn't know what to expect. As I moved slowly through the marsh, I began to hear ducks flying in nearby. I would catch glimpses of them through the reeds, and when the opportunity presented itself, I photographed whatever I could. A few moments with the beautiful cinnamon teal was a wonderful start to the morning, but just as soon as it had appeared, it continued on its way and moved out of sight. I've always enjoyed photographing coots. Most photographers don't give them any attention, but I think they're beautiful birds, and as I made my way through the marsh, I had multiple opportunities to photograph them. After hours of winding my way through the wetlands, I began to see fewer and fewer birds, and so I began to make my way back to solid land. What a wonderful morning I just had in the floating blind. It felt so good to be back out here in the blind and to change things up a little bit this morning. As I mentioned previously in this video, a few months ago I came out with another video where I talk about my top recommendations, things to remember when using a floating blind for wildlife photography. I didn't really adhere to any of those points this morning due to the conditions that I have to work with right now. But it was wonderful to change things up a little bit, to get out here and just kind of explore the area in the blind and see what birds I could find to photograph. I had a lot of really cool opportunities this morning, and it was a lot of fun. I can't wait to hopefully get back out in the blind soon, because that was a lot of fun. On a side note, I've still got a few spots available on one of my Alaska bear workshops this summer. So if you're interested in photographing beautiful bears as they fish, as they wrestle, as they play, go snag one of those spots. There's only a few left. I cannot wait to get back out there later this summer and photograph those beautiful bears. And I hope you can join me. If this year doesn't work for you, I've already got availability on my website for you to be able to snag a spot next summer. So hop on there. Spots are already filling up for next year. So if you're interested in joining me next summer, go snag one of those spots soon, as like I mentioned, spots are already filling up. Thank you so much for following along this week. I always appreciate the support. I've got some really fun adventures coming up that I cannot wait to go on and share with you guys. These are going to be solo adventures, as well as being able to join some of you out in the field to photograph some beautiful animals. And again, I can't wait to share those here with you. I thank you so much for the support. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time.